Once upon a time, there were games that didn't even have stories. But over the years, we've seen the medium of video games really mature, and so too are the ways in which some of these stories are told.
I want to take you on a journey back. I want you to remember occasions that made you laugh, times that made you smile.
Certainly we can say not all games are narrative. There's certainly plenty of games that are just puzzles and work fantastically well on their own, and any sense of story is in the way the person plays. But we certainly know that audiences like narrative, they engage with narrative. It's wired into our DNA, so it makes sense that we are enlivened by complex narrative in gameplay.
So what are the elements that make a great story? Surprise, anticipation. How do you keep an audience on the edge of their seat so that they want to stay tuned to see what happens next? But then you've got the key things like a great character, often a complex character with a flaw and something that they have to overcome. Great antagonists. If you think of a character having a goal and the obstacles that thwart that character in achieving that goal. But I also think what's important in telling a great story is the possibility of change.
Your state of mind is important, Way. It's important to me, it's important to how you do your job.
Specifically for a game, you absolutely must marry design and story goals. If those two things don't come together, your game will be lacking somehow.
In the case of some of the most compelling stories told in video games, at the end of the journey, both the player and the main character should be left with this intense feeling of transformation, something that's incredibly unique to the medium of video games.
My whole goal is to empower players to tell their own story. I always describe it as telling a story with the player as opposed to the player. And a lot of what I see out there now is not so much exploiting what makes games unique and different and wonderful. It's about making games more like movies, or making games that tell a story in their cinematic moments, but then it's just something completely divorced from that in the actual gameplay.
Somehow, I didn't think he was about to tell me I'd won the lottery.
Most games are really based on adrenaline and skills and the fact that you can press the right buttons as quickly as possible and develop some technique. But I don't see games as a sport. I see, at least not the games I make, I see them as an emotion simulator in many ways. I mean, it's a way to emulate whatever can happen to you, the good things and the bad things, except it's just a simulator. It's not for real, but make you believe it's for real. That's my challenge.
Today, the way in which developers approach storytelling in games is as varied as games themselves.
If you think of a game like Half-Life 2, we get the first big game that doesn't have any cutscenes.
Dr. Freeman, I presume.
So they've had to find a way to tell the story in a complex world without having to give us a cutscene. And I think it's very interesting that they solved the problem in Half-Life 2 the same way Jane Austen solved her problem in Pride and Prejudice hundreds of years earlier. Pride and Prejudice is also it's a first-person shooter. We see everything through Lizzie Bennet's eyes. Jane Austen solves the problem by creating letters, all these third-person letters that get written to her and about her, which allow us to see the bigger world and the context and the stakes that are coming for her. Half-Life 2 does the same thing. They go, if we can't have cutscenes to show this bigger world, how else do we do it? We get Dr. Breen and his voiceovers. We get the telescreens that are telling us things about the news, constant news reports. So they just found another way.
Portal is about the gun and the way that it works, the portal gun in Portals. So the plot is about that, and Journey is about the way you connect with someone else on this journey. And Assassin's Creed is about freedom, about climbing buildings and going everywhere. And the concepts the game deals with are about those issues.
2010's Heavy Rain made the story the central focus of the game.
A game like Heavy Rain is a really important moment, not necessarily because it's a good game and it created a certain polemic debate about whether it was good or not, but it was certainly a moment to say, hang on, here's seriously complex, rich, detailed and carefully built storytelling in an interactive form. Do we want it? And I think by the mere fact that it was made and there was a lot of talk about it, said that people were open to the idea that games needed or could have better stories to be more satisfying.
The game seemed to resonate with many, many people, especially with women, in a very strange way. You wouldn't believe how many guys we meet telling me, oh, I played Heavy Rain with my wife and we played the game. This is the only game we ever played together and she loved it.
Where's Jason?
So that's great. I'm really proud of that because I think that women are probably more clever than we are. I mean, we can stay in front of the screen for hours shooting at zombies or monsters, but they can't because they need something deeper and something more emotional and something more interesting for them.
Oh, no, 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 no! I did what was necessary! You don't get to make that call!
I think that storytelling in games still has a long way to go, which I'm glad for, because it means we can evolve and go places I can't even envision. And that we have so much room to affect people.
I think we've proven we're capable to do games that can move me emotionally like a film can move me. I've cried in games, I've had heart in my mouth in games, I've cringed at games, played games so scary I hid under my bed. Scarier than any horror film I've ever seen. So we're there on an emotional level. What we now need to do is just make sure we're doing more of it and that we continue to see where it can go. And that's no different to filmmaking, it's no different from radio drama, it's no different from stage plays or painting or art. This continual process of maturity, of finding where else it can be.